Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be presenting here at the Battery Minerals Conference here again. I'd like to take you through the venture story, and it's going to be pretty exciting in the year ahead as the company goes becomes a producer with the Riley Iron Ore Mine in Tasmania, which is on the verge of delivering its first shipment. But the company is much more than that. We have had just announced that Chalice are kicking off the joint venture work on a Julimar lookalike, and I'll let you decide on that when we go through the slides. We've also completed a drill program in our Coolum Gold Project, and we're nearing completion on our drilling on our Golden Grove North, which is a zinc copper gold project. But let's not forget that 10 years ago, Venture was completing a feasibility study on its Mount Lindsay tin tungsten project. And almost to the day, tin has now reached record high prices. So that's above $33,000 a tonne US, and that's 3 times the price of copper, which most people tend to forget. So Venture truly is 2 companies for the price of 1. Like I said, the Riley Iron Ore Mine production is imminent, commissioning is almost completed. We started drilling at Mount Lindsay, we just announced that last week, so that's a pretty exciting tin target, which I'll talk about a bit more. Like I said, Chalice are on the ground at our southwest project down near Manjimup, just south of Greenbushes. And we're just wrapping up the program there at Golden Grove North, where we hit 7% zinc late last year. And we've got some results to come out to the market shortly on the Coolum Gold Project, where we had 31 metres at a gram we announced in a trench at the beginning of the year. Share price has gone fairly well in the last few weeks. We're at 11.5 cents at the moment, so $150 million market cap. A bit of that's on the back of the Chalice, I suppose, but also record iron ore prices and also now record tin prices. It's the same team that started the company back in 2006, just a few shuffling positions. So all the experience and knowledge of the Riley Iron Ore Project and the Mount Lindsay Tin Tungsten Project still in-house. So it allowed us to switch, when the prices came back into vogue, if you like, switch to those commodities, and so we're back onto the job there. The Riley Iron Ore Mine. Now this is a very straightforward opportunity. It's located in the northwest of Tasmania, so you don't get many iron ore mines in Tasmania, but I suppose Australia's only magnetite mine sits here at Savage River, and it's been pumping slurry out to the coast in a pellet plant for the last 50 years. So there's like a lot of projects on the west coast of Tasmania, there's a fair bit of history there and a lot of long life mines. So in red we've got the haulage route. I'll just go back a sec. Yes, the haulage route, 120 kilometres, fully permitted. It's a bitumen road up to the port of Burnie. We're fully permitted to go, so that can start. We'll probably start trucking in the very, very near future. So all that's completed. And that's the deposit, which you just saw previously. It's 1.5 metres thick, 0 strip ratio, just sitting there on the surface. That area was previously logged back in the 80s, and 2 years ago a fire went through and burnt what growth was left behind. So it's a pretty straightforward process. It's a gravel and washing plant, and I'll show you that in a second. But we're at the stage now we've pretty much got the plant built, so we're just trialling the pieces of equipment at the moment and getting it ready to begin a steady state production. We have Jeff Halloran running the project. He's done this 3 times before for similar scale operations in high rainfall environments, which certainly the west coast of Tasmania is. And the price, well, you know, it keeps moving around the iron ore price quite a bit. We did our study numbers and got $30 million out of it back in 2019 at 90 US. Obviously the exchange rate was significantly lower than it is today. But even at, well, I got 200 there, now it's 210. I just saw it come through on my email, that last presentation. So it's a very economic project, and the great part about it, it's only 2 years, so we're going to capture these high iron ore prices. And there it is today. There's the plant. It's even more so advanced than it is at that moment. We have Caterpillar equipment on site. Dale Elphinston's our major shareholder. I suppose Tasmania's most known, richest person in Tasmania. And Cube will be doing the haulage there. So first ore haulage is a matter of days away. First ore shipment a few weeks after that. So pretty exciting time for the company as we transition from explorer to producer.
Now, I suppose we're at the Battery Minerals Conference, so I need to probably touch on our Mount Lindsay tin tungsten project. And for those who don't know, tin is an EV metal. It's in the anodes of batteries, and it's very important. Half the use of tin sits in solder, which is, I suppose, the glue that joins all our electronics together. So in this fourth industrial revolution that's upon us now, we're electrifying everything, you need tin, or you need a little bit of solder, you need a bit of circuitry in everything you have. So tin is super important. And the reason it's at record prices is because electric vehicles manufacturers have been running out of semiconductors. And that's because if you look at the LME stockpiles at the moment, there's something like 1,000 tonnes of tin. So almost around about a day's supply on this. It's a huge shortage. And that demand for electric vehicles, which every other presenter's spoken about today and we'll talk about all day, is going to have a huge impact on tin going forward. So the world cannot keep up supply with tin at the moment. It needs new discoveries, and the doldrums of the tin price have meant that the last 3 or 4 decades has virtually been made no new discoveries. So I think Mount Lindsay is in a very unique position there. So you can see that solar cells, wind power, energy storage, it's all about the current environment. So very much tin is about the future going forward. And I talked about solder, but 5G network, as all those base stations go out, so you know 5G is a pretty short range. We've got to build those, more circuitry, more demand for tin and solder, and then tin EVs, 5 times as much tin required. Tin's used, tin plate copper wiring, it's called tin copper, the circuitry, the anodes of the lithium-ion batteries. It's just tin, tin, tin. You know, I don't want to overemphasise it, but there's a little bit of tin in all of this. Now, the world only produces 350,000 tonnes of this per annum. So there's a lot of tin in the world when most people sort of sit there and look at it and they go, well, you know, that's great. But the problem is that we're going into an ESG type world now. And 90% of the world's tin is produced in high, or will come from high ESG areas. So basically, going forward, a lot of that tin is not going to be, I suppose, acceptable. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on the supply side of things as demand goes up. And we expect the world's going to need another 30% more tin just for the EV side of things by 2030. Mount Lindsay is not just a tin story, it's also a critical mineral story in terms of tungsten. This is a picture out of the Critical Minerals Prospectus. So you go to page 148 in the tungsten section and you'll see a picture of this core drilled in 2008, 12 metres at 1.7% tungsten. It's twice the grade of King Island, which is the premier mine in the world. So very high grade. The UV lamp showing the very coarse grained scheelite, so very amenable to processing and, more importantly, gravity, which I'll touch on in a sec. Don't know much about tungsten. Well, it's a critical mineral on every list. Now, tin didn't make the list for Australia. It was the next one on the list. It was number 25, not number 24. So tin usually appears on most of the other lists around the world. But tungsten, which is like a rare earth controlled by China, and hence, you know, the countries like the EU, Britain, America, they won't want to be constrained by the Chinese supply. So they want to look for areas in other places. And when you're talking about responsibly sourced tungsten, you've got to go to hard rock mines in developed countries like Canada and Australia. Hence, this project's very unique. Mount Lindsay has half a watershed, which is, I think, an entire tungsten mine in itself in Queensland, sitting as a co-product in this mine. So, again, a very significant asset. But tungsten, same hardness, second only in hardness to diamond, and the same density as gold. So it's a very, very rare and strategic commodity, used for armour plating and also armour-piercing bullets. So it has much of a military flavour to it. Just going back on the project just quickly, just recapping, 80,000 tonnes of tin metal sitting in a resource. It's one of the largest undeveloped tin assets in the world. We also have, like I said, a significant amount of tungsten sitting in the mine as a co-product. They sit together in 2 ore bodies 180 metres apart that run parallel. And it's what we call a skarn deposit, which means it's zoned, which means it's not narrow vein, high-grade material. It is very much, you can mine the cassiterite-rich zones, and that's what we're going for in this 4.7 million tonnes at 0.4% tin and 0.3% tungsten. Just a bit more about what we've done. We've spent $35 million there. We've done 83,000 metres of drilling, all diamond core, half HQ, half NQ. Before we turned up, Aberfoyle and Renison had done 17,000 metres. That's 100,000 metres diamond core drilling in this asset. We did a feasibility study and generated a 75% tin con. You can't do better than 79. And that study told us that we could simplify the flow sheet and go for a gravity, combined gravity, tin tungsten, and then separate it using electrostatic separation, because tin is conductive, as I've already said, and tungsten is not. So that flow sheet will simplify it. So our study was looking at doing a smaller, higher grade, $50 million CapEx version, going underground, getting the footprint down. So that's where the study was heading before the iron ore price went up and we focused on Riley. But there's the price at the moment. Tin's 150% higher than it was at its lows in early 2016, and tungsten hasn't matched that, but it's around about 60% higher. So the project, from an underground, smaller underground operation, looking very attractive at the moment. We've got plenty of exploration upside, and that's why we're out there drilling again. You know, Mount Lindsay has got, you know, up to 26 metres at 2.5% tin. If I said to you 26 metres at 7.5% copper, you'd certainly stand up and take notice, because it's 3 times the price. We have a great Renaissance-style target along strike from the Renaissance Bell mine, which is Australia's only tin mine. It's been going for 130 years and is down a kilometre. It's mining over 1% tin. There's no tungsten. It's a narrow vein, massive sulphide, so it generates an EV target. That's how I explore. And like I said, we've just started drilling that target as of last week. That's the EM, and this is the target we're chasing. It's under an alluvial tin field with massive sulphide, no doubt, at depth. So that's a pretty exciting target along strike from Renaissance. So stay tuned for news on that. Just touch on Chalice before I wrap it up here today on the joint venture. Chalice came and saw us in July and did the joint venture. This is not long after the Julimar discovery. $3.7 million they've got to spend to earn 70%. At that point, venture can hold its position should they be running into another Julimar discovery. Look at the geology here very quickly. Very similar geology in the western terrain that Chalice had promoted. Metamorphic belt. This is, you know, we have a Julimar lookalike, which is 20 kilometres long. That's the massive sulphide we hit back in 2018, which was something like nearly 18 months before Julimar was discovered. We couldn't work out what it was. We were looking for a VMS deposit. But this is the money shot, as I say. Magnetic features look almost identical. And the EM that they've done 6.5 kilometres worth of EM targets down here. We did airborne EM and got something very similar. In fact, along here we've got power lines, so we didn't get any responses at all. Chalice are now doing ground EM to verify those targets. No doubt they will get more targets, or get precise drill targets where they'll be able to drill. They need to spend $900,000 in the next 12 months, and they know that will be drill testing that, hopefully in the second half of this year. So expect some news flow from us on those EM results. And that's pretty much it for me. I'll just very much touch on Golden Grove. Great asset, just along strike from Golden Grove here. 25 kilometres of drilling targets. We have hit 7% zinc in our first drilling. AUKUS sitting here and all the additional plates here, so we've been drill testing that, so it's been really great. Thank you.